Okay, well, this is not me interviewing Rupert Bates, who for me is the person sitting over there. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ed Mead. I am the co-founder of Viewber, a property outsourcing service, and estate agent of 40 years standing, all in prime central London. So Rupert, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi Ed. I'm Rupert Bates. I'm editorial director of Show House magazine and whathouse.com, and not quite as old as Ed, but I've been around a good 30 years in the property industry. Writing about new homes, also a bit of sport, bit of everything really. So I'm delighted to be here with Ed.
Okay. So question, I suppose, why new homes, Rupert? Why did you get involved with new homes rather than what everybody else was doing, which is the rest of the market?
Well, it's quite funny, Ed, actually. I without going back too far, but I started life as a sort of junior reporter on the Newbury Weekly News in Berkshire, which I don't think is a million miles from where you live. I was just general reporter, but my father was an estate agent. The chap who'd been writing the property for about 100 years on the local paper retired. Editor shouts, "Bates, your dad's an estate agent, you can write the property column." Which was more work, no more money. And that's basically where I discovered lunch. Because suddenly all these estate agents and then house builders were desperate for column inches in the paper. So I was out and about, and I thought I could quite get into this rather than running around doing golden weddings and planning meetings, etc. So it sort of evolved from there. So it was sort of all of market to start with. And then I ended up with What House magazine, which was then a print title in your Smiths and Menzies, and it went from there really. That's exactly how it started. And then along came an idea for Show House magazine. That was really where the house building bit and relationships really kicked in, because we recognised we had a consumer magazine on the shelves for new homes, but there was nothing really. You had obviously your Estates Gazette, Property Week, but there wasn't really a house building trade magazine for the sort of the people and the personalities. And so we launched Show House magazine, in fact, 25 years ago, almost to the day. Although our plans for a big party have been somewhat curtailed by recent events, but we're very proud of where we've taken it.
I suppose you're giving hope to anyone who's an estate agent and worry that their kids will become an estate agent. If you can be so successful and still have an estate agent as a father. Actually, I should send this recording to my kids, because they'll be very pleased to realise that being the son of or the kids of an estate agent means there's hope for them.
Well, actually, my father, God rest his soul now, but my father actually was so pompous about being called an estate agent, he rebranded as a property consultant. And I did actually, I think my last Newbury Weekly News column, because he was a local estate agent, I did manage to weave in a property for sale by Hungerford estate agent Tim Bates, and I put probably the best property consultant in the world, and the sub-editor missed it. So
it got through.
I got that one through.
But I think you went on, didn't you? I'm sure I came across you in the past when you were writing, because you ended up writing for the Telegraph, didn't you? About property for the Telegraph.
I did indeed, yes. I did some shift work for the Telegraph initially on the Peterborough column, which was like a diary column. I then ended up doing some property for the Telegraph, and also rugby on the sports desk. So I sort of mixed and matched really, but I managed to sort of keep both the property and the rugby writing going in tandem for a long time. So and also write the property column for the Field magazine, which is obviously far removed from new homes, but lovely country estates in Scotland for sale. So I certainly see the full gamut of the UK property market.
Yeah. So I can't remember how our paths crossed really. I mean, it's certainly recently. I mean, part of the reason we're talking now is because we recognised in each other, in terms of what we're doing, that the estate agency. Let's look at new homes separately, because new homes works in a very different way. People look for a site, they build houses on it, then they sell it. They want to sell them all at once. There's a large number of them all in one place. It's a very different dynamic, but the staffing issues are very much the same. And I think the reason we started talking was because you recognised that clearly for magazines. And by the way, I love the way it is still a magazine. I'm very into cars and motorbikes, and I wouldn't dream of reading Car Magazine or Bike Magazine, really sensibly named, obviously. I wouldn't dream of doing anything other than taking them as a magazine and reading them in the bath or whatever. So it's great that you're still going with that. But obviously what we do at Viewber is something which is directly related to the new build industry, in that the new build industry is, like anybody else, probably suffering some sort of staffing issues.
Yeah, yes, I would say so. I mean, obviously, recruitment's always been an issue in terms of skills shortages right through the trades. But obviously, in terms of viewings, and I suppose particularly now, because things are picking up quite swiftly. Certainly, anecdotally, from what I'm hearing from the house builders, they're very busy. And I think, yes, I remember we talked about the fact, and it actually was also my personal experience, because I bought brand new a few years ago, and I think it was the concept of not just Viewber's ability to show people around, and all the expertise you've got there, but I think house building adds another layer in many ways, doesn't it? Because a house builder can engage with a customer up to 9 months, even a year before they move in, and I think it's very important that customer service lives on from exchange to completion. And I think there's a real opportunity there for house builders to use the Viewber services, not just in the sort of physical showing of properties, but maybe just assisting with all aspects of on site and the interaction with the customer.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's exactly what we're there for. I mean, it's a huge industry. I mean, if you look at the new build industry now, what sort of percentage of the overall UK property PLC do you think is represented by new homes?
Oh God, I mean, it's massive. And I think the thing about house building, I mean, it's an oft quoted stat, but I think for every new home built, it's creates multiple jobs, multiple employment. In terms of the knock-on effects, I think is huge. People see house builders, particularly the bigger, more successful ones. They see big profits, which is a separate discussion in itself. But I think people forget the knock-on effect that new homes have on any local community in a positive way, in terms of driving employment, driving trade, etc., etc. And I think that's a hugely important part of the whole industry.
So what was it about your own personal experience that made you think, oh, I need some help with this? Was it positive or negative, or what do you remember as being good or bad about it?
Well, to be fair, I mean, it was pretty good, but I just think that house builders in general maybe miss a marketing trick when you've exchanged contracts, and that's it's a load of money, and you're officially in there. You've got to go on to complete, and I think there's an opportunity almost in that downtime as the house is being built, is to be better looked after. And I think particularly now with all new technology, whether it's just keeping you abreast of how your house is going along, maybe even pointing out the issue, so that when as inevitably happens, it gets knocked back on the completion date, you sort of understand why, because you realize that there's a construction process, things can go wrong, the weather can thwart you, supply chain issues, it could be anything. And I think there's a real opportunity for a sort of generic marketing of brand new homes, personalizing them and making the house builders less faceless, right from the word go. So there is that sense of you're in the tent, they're working on your behalf, they're building your house, maybe allow you, subject to health and safety, to don a hard hat and boots and actually come round, because people love the concept of building and construction. I think new build is great because you literally can see it coming out of the ground, and I think if house builders can tap into that, I think the whole reputation will rise as well, because I think there'll be the customer care levels will rise as a result.
Yeah, I think that interpersonal thing, I always remember when I was working as an estate agent, great excitement with the first viewing, even more excitement with the second viewing. Hopefully they'd then make an offer and maybe go once more. But then when they rang up and said, can I take a friend? Can I meet my mother there? Can I go and do this, that, whatever? You thought, oh God, do I have to? And obviously with the new build industry, it's that times 10, because getting somebody out to look after somebody, it could be miles away. I mean, the thing with an estate agent is the chances are it's relatively local, their property, but a new build site could be miles away from the builder's HQ. And of course, they got the extra added pressure of having to wander about with a hard hat on and all that. So there's that stress as well.
Absolutely. Well, I found it with our house. As I say, we were very well looked after. But I mean, a classic example was my wife's parents were over from Australia, and because we couldn't actually get on site to look at it, you're literally peering through the hedges and trying to get a glimpse of it, and you think this is ridiculous. There must be some other way of doing this. So and I think there's great opportunities there.
Yeah.
And I remember Ed, actually with Viewber now, wasn't it that the whole, I mean, the evolution of Viewber has been fantastic. But I remember was the original story true that you were wandering in your garden thinking about the future, and you were asked by your wife, what's the most frustrating thing that you had through your estate agency career?
Yeah, that's exactly how it started. And for me personally, my most frustrating thing was weekend viewings, because we used to have, in our 18 offices at Douglas and Gordon, we used to have a Saturday member of staff. But there was a high turnover. They often didn't turn up. Not that often, but there were issues sometimes with them not turning up. There was only one of them. Their diary was full by Tuesday. So I just turned around to my wife and I said, well, I said, I wish I had something I could dip into and dip out of when I had problems at weekends. And that's where it started.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's a natural progression, isn't it, from our discussion that, that very much started in the second-hand market, but there is an opportunity with house builders. Obviously, many have, very strong relationships with the estate agent, but just complementary services you can offer and help them out.
Well, I think it's, the trouble is I made the mistake, Rupert, of thinking that all estate agents would think this is great. But one of the issues I hadn't reckoned with was the fact that, of course, estate agents already have an enormous fixed cost built into their system, which is the negotiators who are going to go and do the viewings. So they tend to look at what we do at Viewber as an extra cost rather than a value add in some ways. So they imagine that their staff are going to be going and doing all these weekend viewings and et cetera, et cetera. And they often don't. A lot of staff will, but they can't be everywhere. And weekends of these days, when my kids, who are 27 now, when they're old enough to buy, they are not going to want to go into an estate agent and do things in the way they do now. And I think that's fine for the second-hand market, and that's now changing. So Viewber has found it dominating is probably a bit strong, but we're very, very strong in the auction sector, the hybrid sector. Now those are areas of the market where they don't have that fixed cost at the moment. They needed a solution. They were always looking for a solution, and Viewber has provided a spectacular opportunity for these guys. Now, a lot of developers and house builders I know, yes, they have relationships with agents, and of course they have to have a symbiotic relationship, as I remember it, with agents in order to get the land coming in and to be offered land, and it's a holistic journey right the way through. But increasingly, a lot of property managers and developers are tending to bring their estate agency services in-house. They try and do them themselves from HQ. They've always had their show homes. But the show home will always be incredibly busy for the 2 or 3 weekends when it opens, and they may not have enough staff. So again, we found that Viewbers can go into those and help out, just be an extra pair of hands for the whole day, for an afternoon or whatever it is. And then when they've only got, say, half a dozen properties left on the site, the show suite closes, they all go home, and there's no one there to show somebody around. So again, a simple key safe on the side of the show house, and a Viewber can turn up and do that. So we've suddenly discovered ourselves beginning to get into that, which is I think where you and I sort of cross paths, really.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, I think, and as we said as well, it's that I think in the last issue of Show House when we were talking and writing about it, that it is that sense of the last mile, isn't it, and the fact that almost that 24/7 availability, because people are busy, and I think when you think of the value of what house builders are selling, you don't want to miss a single trick, do you? You don't know that one person who breezes by the show home, but there's a sign on the door says back in 15 minutes. Maybe they won't wait.
Well, you might miss it, and to have someone responsive and local. I mean, what we've built is a national network of thousands of people who are happy to get out of bed and go and do a job around the corner, whatever it is. 60% are ex-property people, average age is 53. They're exactly the sort of people we want, and our average mess up rate is considerably lower, actually, I have to say, than it used to be at D&G at weekends, which is slightly embarrassing. So that's what we thrive on. Look, I'm fairly sure that people listening to you and I chatting away here, you know, we've had 10, 15 minutes or whatever talking here. Couple of things which I'm fascinated, because you're quite a presence on Twitter, and you're one of those guys who is brave enough to venture outside your normal sort of remit, and I suppose with your journalistic past, you're probably more used to doing that. What I'm always interested to, well, one thing you write about a lot is rugby. Why do you write so much about rugby?
Well, actually, Ed, I wrote about rugby for the Sunday Telegraph and Daily Telegraph for about 25 years. So I was,
oh wow,
I covered Rugby World Cups going back to South Africa. '95 was my first World Cup. I was out in Australia 2003, and everybody goes, "Wow, so you were in Sydney that night that Johnny kicked the winning drop goal?" I go, I've always wanted to lie and say yes, I was, but actually, because I was quite a junior reporter then, I was flown home after the semi-finals. I'm the Bateman cartoon, the man who went to the Rugby World Cup but missed the final. But actually, another reason was the night before that final was the What House Awards. So we had 1,700 of the great and the good and the very dangerous of the house building industry who I had to sort of speak to. So you know, I flew back, and we obviously had the awards the night before. And then, you know, early morning was the Rugby World Cup final, obviously with everybody, the whole of the property world hung over. But I remember that night, the What House Awards, so many house builder friends, and you know, a lot of house builders love their rugby, saying, "What on earth are you doing back here?" And in hindsight, if Zoom had been a thing there, I probably would have just done a live link up from Sydney in my shorts and thought, to hell with that, I'm watching the final.
That all seems like a long time ago now. What's the difference, by the way, between What House and Show House? Just explain.
Yes, Show House magazine is the trade title for UK house builders, and obviously we've got the website showhouse.co.uk. But What House, which actually, right at the start when I said it used to be a consumer magazine, it's now purely a consumer new homes portal, whathouse.com, which actually is going fantastic guns. We've got really good traction, and the thing is, it's actually undiluted by secondhand. We've stuck to our knitting in the sense that it's only listings of brand new homes.
And how many are there on the site? How many listings?
Oh well, we've got thousands, and we've got. I mean, I think the first quarter of this year, I think we got 1.9 million users, and I think we're driving an awful lot. We've got anybody from the big volume builders to SMEs. We're actually offering a lot of SME packages at the moment, because you know, they need a lot of support, and actually that just leads me on to something that out of lockdown is I've noticed there's so much more industry collaboration. I mean, SMEs is a classic example. Once a week I'm on a call with about 25, 30 managing directors of SMEs who are basically sharing problems, solutions, and just generally shooting the breeze and helping each other out. And that's, the industry has always been collaborative up to a point, but you tend to go back and do your own thing. But I think such has been the uniqueness of this challenge, that there's been a real feeling, sort of band of builders feeling to work through solutions, whether it's can we get a Sybil's loan, or what problems you're having with your supply chain, or how to enforce social distancing, and it's a real shared experience.
Yeah, well, look, talking of industry collaboration, that's sort of how you and I got together. I mean, the fact is, you were visionary enough to think to yourself, well, hang on a minute, as show home, having the ability to have all of them in one place does give you the ability to think about offering them services. And I'm very happy that you thought about Viewber and thought, well, hang on a minute, these guys could probably do with understanding it. And I think for anybody listening who's in the new build, well, actually, frankly, in any industry, but particularly the new build, which is very much Rupert's area of expertise, the fact that you can go through Show House magazine and find out about Viewber. You know, we actually have we've got a landing page on our website dedicated to you guys, and it'll be fascinating if anybody wants to go and find out a bit more. I think it's the sort of collaboration that our business needs, and the ability to point customers who are having some issues, particularly in this unusual worldwide situation everybody's been in, when they've got staff on furlough, not sure when they're coming back, probably busier than they've been for ages because everything's happening in one go. This is the perfect time to be using a dip in, dip out sort of freelance service like Viewber. So I'm really chuffed that you took the trouble to listen and get in touch and talk.
Well, likewise, Ed. I think it's got potential to be a great partnership, and it'll drive up house building customer care service levels no end. So I think it will work really, really well.
Okay, well, I think we'll stick to that as a byline: driving up customer care levels for house builders. I think that's a great way to end. So, Rope, thanks for taking the trouble to chat. Appreciate it. And
Thank you very much.
People can either go to viewber.co.uk/showhouse, or they can go to showhouse.com or whathouse.com. Is that right?
Yep, showhouse.co.uk or whathouse.com. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks for chatting. And if you're watching, thanks for listening.
Thank you.